We turn now to space. 1968 was a traumatic year for America. The Vietnam War was raging, riots and unrest plagued political conventions, and the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King and Robert F. Kennedy shook an already weary nation to the core. The end of that year, though, gave reason to hope.
3, 2, 1, 0.
NASA's Apollo 8 mission successfully launched 3 astronauts into space, beating the Soviets to become the first manned flight to leave the Earth's orbit, circle the moon, and return safely. It was a breakthrough that stunned the world. Joining us now is Jeffrey Kluger, a science editor and senior writer at Time magazine, and the author of Apollo 8, a new book that looks back at that seminal mission. Jeffrey, welcome. Put Apollo 8 in context for us with all the different missions. Why is it so important?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it's important culturally. As we said at the beginning of the segment, this was the most tragically blood-soaked year in modern human and global history. We had all of these terrible events. There was the Tet Offensive, and at the same time, 3 American astronauts had been lost in a spacecraft fire just the year before, in 1967. Ed White, Gus Grissom, and Roger Chaffee. The space program, which had been our talisman, our charm, was suddenly moved out of reach. And then here we were in the summer of 1968. There was no plausible way that we were going to make President Kennedy's deadline of getting men on the moon before 1970. And the guys at NASA said, you know what? You know our schedule, let's forget our schedule. Let's kickstart this thing, let's put this spacecraft on top of this unproven rocket, and let's get 3 guys out to orbit the moon before the end of the year, on Christmas Eve, no less.
It's amazing that after especially the accident,
That's right.
that they would not be risk averse.
Right.
And why not only were they not risk averse, they, as you said, sped up the mission.
Well, and I think what was going on there, you're absolutely right. They could not abide losing any other people, but they also had an intuitive faith in the men and women of NASA. And we should remember the women. Hidden Figures reminds us of this. They knew that they had the resolve, that they had the wherewithal, they had the monomaniacal commitment to make these machines work and make this mission work. And I think that says something about America then and America now. As President Kennedy said, we choose to go to the moon. We simply elected to do a great transcendent thing, and we did it.
How much a part of that was, well, break the component parts down for me in terms of that commitment, because we'll bring it to the present in a moment. But I mean, obviously the Cold War added some spur to the movement. But what else was it at play that created this this sense of risk tolerance and this big long shot they took?
Well, I think it was that the Cold War was very much in some ways a kabuki war. Now, you don't call nuclear warheads kabuki. They're very real, but it was all about symbolism. So they knew this is a way to plant our flag, to establish to the world that a free culture, that a capitalist culture is able to do something preposterously wonderful. And I think something about the crew said it too. Frank Borman, the commander, he was a cold warrior, a deeply patriotic American. He was flying out there to punch the Russians in the nose. Jim Lovell was flying for the sheer joy of flight. Lovell was never as happy as when he was in space, and never as happy in space as when he was doing something crazy. And Bill Anders, the third guy, the rookie, he loved the machines. He loved the lunar cartography. He was there for the granular work. It was the perfect combination of 3 guys.
Give us a little sense, if you can, about the technology here. I mean, what it was like to, compared to what we know today, where we have a world where everything seems possible. What was the technology like that sent them there?
Well, we saw this in the movie Apollo 13. This was slide rule technology. This was sharpened pencil technology. The computer on board the spacecraft, one of the great selling points was that it had a screen, and the screen was capable of displaying 30 complete digits at a time. 30. That was state of the art.
It's not even a tweet.
It's not even a tweet. That's exactly right. It's probably 118 characters or something. So they went on old school sort of science. And Jim Lovell, the navigator, he navigated by the stars. He would take a rough alignment on 3 stars and then slowly refine the alignment until they knew where they were going.
Compare it to today, because the notion now is bureaucrats, how could they ever do something like this? Why do we go to the Where is this innovation, this sense of risk-taking now in the government sphere?
Well, that's what's challenging. The government has become so partisan and dysfunctional that this kind of thing is impossible. It's important to remember that the lunar program spanned 4 presidencies, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. It spanned 6 Congresses, and yes, I think the Democrats were in control of all of them, but the majorities changed. The feuds were there, but the country was obsessively focused on this one nonpartisan, indeed surpassing partisan goal to get to the moon before a certain deadline, and we did it.
All right, Jeffrey Kluger, thank you so much. A fascinating, wonderful book, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be back in a moment.